Yeah. Today's topic is DHCP. DHCP is nothing but it is one of the services, networking services we could say. DHCP means it is dynamic host configuration protocol. So what do you mean by DHCP? You already know it is a service or a protocol which assigns the IP address automatically to the computers. So you already know IP address and how to assign an IP address to the computers. Correct, na? Means there are two ways of assigning the IP address to the network interface card. All these days, right, you were manually going to the network interface card and assigning the IP address manually. Like you used to go to the network interface card, IP version 4, properties, and then there is two options, right? If you go to ncpa.cpl here, so there are multiple network interface card are there. You used to double click on this or you used to right click on this, go to properties, and here IPv4 properties, and here there are two things. One is obtain an IP address automatically, another one is use the following IP address. When you click on this use the following IP address, it used to enable and you are using this manually entering the IP address, right? And then you used to make the computer available over the network. But this DHCP is come to picture only when you are keeping this first option, obtain an IP address automatically and obtain an IP address, obtain a DNS server address automatically. Okay, so when you keep this obtain an IP address automatically or obtain the DNS server address automatically, right? That is when the DHCP jobs will be started. Means the computer thinks that when you keep the first option, obtain an IP address automatically, it will start searching for the DHCP server available in the network. Okay, so then the machine understand, okay, there is nobody is there to give the IP address statically. Okay, I need to search for a DHCP server to get the IP address. That means this dynamic host configuration protocol, what it will do, it will assign the IP address, gateway, subnet mask, and DNS address automatically to all the available computers in the network. You may ask a question, why do we need DHCP, sir? Why can't we add it manually? See, if you have 10 computers or 20 computers, that is fine. You can know, okay, 1.1 to 1.1 to 1.20. So 20 IP addresses are there. It is easy to remember. Imagine the big organizations where you have 2 lakh, 3 lakhs computers and the users, right? That time it is not so easy to track the IP address is assigned to which computer and which user. So the DSCP, what it will do, it will assign the IP address, okay, automatically for a certain number of days. Okay, by default it is 8 days. Okay, after 8 days, if the user is not available, right, it will take the IP address back to the pool, and if anybody else has the IP address, then the same IP address will be given to the new computer. So here, giving the IP address, tracking the IP address, and taking the IP address back to the pool, it is all automated. That is using by the DHCP service. So before we get into that, how that happens and all, before we get into that, let us understand the IP assignments. So as you're already aware, there are three types of assignments. Okay, two types majorly. One is manual assignment. That means you manually go to the network interface card, okay, go to the properties, IP version 4, then you will select the second option, no, add a static IP address. Manually add an IP address, you'll select that option and you will enter the IP address, correct na? And subnet mask and also the gateway, correct, right? So under DNS address, you are assigning it manually. The dynamic means the assigning the IP address dynamically using the DHCP server means the DHCP service is there that assigns the IP address automatically without your intervention to avoid the manual errors. And the last one is APIPA. This is very important. In most of the interview, they'll ask this question. What do you mean by APIPA? APIPA, APIPA means it is automatic private IP address. Okay, it will be assigned by the operating system. Okay, who will assign the APIPA? It will be assigned by the operating system. Okay, manually means you will assign, dynamic means DHCP will assign, APIPA means the operating system will assign. So in what scenario operating system will assign? Imagine your computer is set to get the IP address dynamically. Dynamically in the sense the DHCP service is responsible to give the IP address to the end user computers or any server for that matter. Okay. Sometimes what happens, due to some reason the DHCP service might get stopped or the DHCP server must be down or might be down. Okay. That time you have selected the option obtain an IP address automatically. The computer what it will do, it will try to look for the DHCP server presence in the network. So once the DHCP server is present in the network, it will give the IP address. If the DHCP server is not available due to some reason, XYZ can be the reason. Okay. If the DHCP server is not there, then operating system will wait for some seconds. I think it is 16 seconds. So within 16 seconds, it should talk to the DHCP server. It should get the IP address. All the negotiation should happen there. But if it is beyond 16 seconds, what it will think, the DHCP, the operating system will think, maybe the DHCP server is not available. Then it has got its own range of IP address called 169 series. Okay, if an IP address that start with 169, we call that as APIPA. So that operating system will give an IP address instead of DHCP server, and that range start with 169. Okay, dot 254 dot 254 dot 254, 1 to 254. It can be anything. 169.1.1.12, 169.254.254.254. Any range in this range, any IP address in this range, it will give. So that is called as APIPA. So using this APIPA, you can even communicate with the computers within the network. Imagine there are 100 computers in the network. All the 99 computer has got the IP address properly because they have recently took the IP address and that valid IP address is there. A user comes from the vacation after 10 days or 15 days, he comes and he will try to connect. Unfortunately, the DHCP server is down and he don't have a valid IP address with him because I told you by default only 8 days the DHCP address will be given, and he has come after 15 days. That means he don't have any valid IP address. That time he will have 169.1.1.10 something IP address. Using that IP address, he can communicate within his office. The 100 users he can communicate, but not outside. Okay. Imagine there are 100 users in Bangalore, another 100 users in Hyderabad. He cannot talk to the Hyderabad users, but he can talk to the 100 users within his office premises. Okay, that is the APIPA. Any questions so far? Assignments? Okay. So that's about the assignment. So now let us understand the responsibilities of the DHCP. What are all the responsibilities of the DHCP? Okay. The DHCP is responsible, okay, for assigning the IP address and its parameters. Okay, are the properties of it. The parameters are is nothing but the first and foremost is IP address. It will normally it will assign the IP address, subnet mask, default gateway, and the DNS address. So DNS address can be optional. Sometimes if you don't have the DNS, that's okay. Okay, but the first three parameters, IP address, subnet mask, default gateway, is very important. If you don't have any of these three, IP address, subnet mask, default gateway, you will not be able to be in the network. There is no communication at all. Okay, and the DNS address is not there means you will not be able to talk to the DNS, you will not be able to use the names and all. Okay, so these four parameters are very crucial. So DHCP responsibility is nothing but assigning the IP address and its parameters. What are all the parameters? It is IP address, subnet mask, default gateway, and the DNS address. Whatever you enter manually, those things should be assigned by the DHCP. That is its responsibility. How it will be assigned? Okay, how a DHCP server will know, okay, what is the IP address I have to give, what is the subnet mask I have to give, what is the default gateway and DNS address I need to enter, I need to provide. So for that there is an option called scope. When you create a DHCP server, you will create a scope. That scope you are going to define, okay, if your user is there in the Bangalore office and he is trying to connect to the Wi-Fi network, when he is trying to connect to the Wi-Fi network, you please give the IP address in this range. What is the range? Say for example, 192.168.10.0 0/24 means 10.0/24 means the total 254 IP address 192.168.10.1, 10.2, 10.3 up to 10.254. This 254 IP address will be given to the Wi-Fi users because we only have 100 users in the Bangalore office. I said correct, na? So whenever the user try to connect, the IP address will be assigned with the help of the scope. That scope will contain all the IP address. What is my starting IP? What will be the end IP? What do you mean by reservation? What do you mean by exclusion? Okay, subnet mask, default gateway, everything will be there in the scope options. I will show you whenever I am doing the lab. You will understand better. That is what the scope. So with the help of the scope, the DHCP server will understand which IP address and which parameters to given to the requester computer. So the next one is lease. Lease is nothing but you might have already heard, right? If people will tell you, okay, we are in the leased house. Okay, leased house is nothing but what? Leasing means what? You are paying certain of amount, and for the intern, what they will do, you can be there in that house, or you can just utilize that premises, or you can enjoy that property for some certain amount of or duration of time. Correct? Na? Like 3 years by default. The same fashion goes here in the dynamic host configuration protocol leasing also. So leasing is nothing but assigning the IP address for a period of time. Okay, means for a certain number of days, that IP address will be assigned to your computer. So say for example, today you have gone to office Monday. Okay, Monday morning when you went to office, right? You will power on the machine, the computer will talk to the DHCP server and get an IP address, and that IP address is valid for 8 days. Okay, imagine since it's a working from home's duration, right? What happens? First 2 days you go to office, Monday and Tuesday you went to office. So next week due to some work you will not go Monday, Tuesday. You are planning to go on Thursday and Friday. So by that time it is more than 8 days. By the time you go to office from Monday to next Thursday, it is more than 8 days. Correct? Huh? So what DHCP will think that so this person is not connected within the 80% of the completion of the time. So if it is 8 days, 80% means it is 6 days. Within 6 days, if you are not connecting again back to the same network, the DHCP thinks that this person is not no more available. It will take the IP address back to the pool. Okay, that is what is leasing. So giving the IP address for certain amount of time and taking the DHCP address back when the user is not connected in the certain amount of days. Okay, that is called as leasing. So by default, lease duration is 8 days. Any question, guys, in this slide? Okay. If no question, I'll move on. Now let us understand how the DHCP works. How a computer will understand whether there is a DHCP server is there or not. If the DHCP server is there, how it will just take the IP address. Okay. The DHCP, that negotiation works on a process called DORA. Okay, DORA means discover, offer, request, and acknowledgement. Means when you power on your computer Monday morning when you go to office, there will in the back end there is a process. There is a handshake happens actually. Shake hand happens. Okay, that handshake is nothing but DORA. Discover, offer, request, and acknowledgement. Okay, so what is that DORA? I'll explain in the next slide. Okay, now you should know what is the process. The process is DORA. Okay, so we also have some of the other things actually reservation and exclusion. Reservation means what? People will tell I have booked the flights, I have booked the tickets. Book the tickets means what? You have reserved the seats in that flight or in that train or in that bus for that particular travel. You have reserved one seat. That means there is definitely one seat is for you. Okay, no matter you travel or not, once you book means it is booked. You will nobody else will come and sit in that seat. Correct? Huh? That is called as reservation. Reservation means assigning an IP address for a device permanently without any lease duration. That means I told you know by default 8 days is the lease duration. If it is leasing, it is the reserved means that is there for the lifetime. See, for the desktop computers, that is fine to change the IP address every now and then or after 8 days. But for the servers and all, we should never do the dynamic IP address. Either server and printers should have a static IP address or a reserved IP address. 99.9% of the time, the clients, the DHCP servers and the printer servers, right? Printers will have the static IP address only. Okay, reservation when we do for the VIP users, maybe your boss, maybe your MDs, maybe for your VPs, they will have some certain different firewall rules and all. That is the reason we will make it a reservation so that whenever they come to office, the same IP address will be assigned. Whenever they go to home, their own IP address should be assigned. Okay, to avoid such kind of things, we will do the reservation. And exclusion. See, I told you, no, Bangalore office, you are going to give a range called 192.168.10.0 to 10.254. Imagine in the Bangalore office, you also have 10 servers, 3 printers. Okay. If you give all 1 to 254 IP address to the Wi-Fi dynamic range, you don't have IP address for the static usage. So for that, thinking that in your mind, you may have excluded first 20 IP address for the static usage and the remaining 234 IP address for the dynamic usage. Means excluding the range of IP address from the DHCP distribution, we call it as exclusion. So what I will do, I'll create an exclusion. Don't assign the IP address from 192.168.1.1 to 192.168.1.10 or 10.10. Okay, this 10 IP address, please don't give via DHCP because I want those 10 IP address for my printers and servers. So then the DHCP understand that and it starts giving the IP address from 11 to 254 for whatever user comes and asks the IP address. Okay, that is the exclusion. And if I ask you or if I want to tell you the ports, the DHCP works on the port number 67 and 68. Both are UDP ports, user datagram protocols. Okay, UDP means it is user datagram protocols. Okay, that works even without the wireless also. That is the reason it is UDP. Okay, so there are two types of communication, use UDP and TCP. UDP means it is wireless. TCP means it is transmission control protocol, that is wireless. UDP you will not have acknowledgement. Okay, TCP you will have an acknowledgement. So for example, when I say when I talk on the phone, if there is no network, if I speak 4 words like hi, hello, how are you? 3 words, hi, hello, how are you? Correct. Two, three, four words. Okay. So whenever there is no network, okay, whatever words it has transmitted, you will not be able to listen. That is why the gap will be coming. But in case of email, it is not like that. Whenever I send hi, hello, how are you? Whether the network is there, whether the bandwidth is there or not, whenever you read that email, you will have the complete email. So that is connection oriented and this is connectionless. Okay, that is called TCP, this is called UDP. I'll explain you maybe in the last class about this. Okay, so that is about the DHCP. It works on 67 and 68. 67 is the server, 68 is the client port. People may ask you in the interview, what do you mean by how the DHCP, I mean, what is the DHCP port? You have to tell DHCP works on port number 67, the server, and the client works on 68. That's about the DHCP port. Okay, and there is an option called super scope in the DHCP. So super scope is the thing, but merging of two or more scopes together. I mean, when you are clubbing two or more scopes together, we call it as the super scope. Okay, say for example, Bangalore Wi-Fi and Bangalore guest. Two Wi-Fi ranges are there. Wi-Fi is for the office users, guest for the third party visitors and all. Okay, vendors and all. So what you will do instead of maintaining two scopes, you will just club together and you will create a super scope. That is called as super scope. Super scope is nothing but clubbing two or more scopes together and having one bigger scope. Call it as super scope. That's all. Like your super bosses. Okay. That's about the process reservation exclusion port and super scopes. And here you go with the DHCP database. So DHCP database sits in the root file. Root is nothing but system32. Okay, when you just type root here, uh, root is nothing but system32. See system32. If you just type system32, see this opens because this is called as root. Okay, and within the root means system32, a file called dhcp.mdb. MDB is nothing but Microsoft database file or database file. Okay, MDB database file. Okay, that is the extension of the DHCP database. If somebody asks you where is the DHCP database is, you have to tell it is system root and DHCP. System root is nothing but system32 slash the file name. DHCP is the file name, MDB is the extension. And the server logs also sits in the same location. Okay, DHCP server dot log file will also be sit in the same system root or system32 folder. Okay, and then in the DHCP, you have some options called allow and deny. There are rules actually. You can even deny the users connected. Say, for example, you have seen some malicious activity. Some user always comes, he will connect to the internet and he'll always try to, download movies from the torrent and blah, blah, blah. So, what he will do, he will make note of his MAC address and you will tell the DHCP don't download this bugger always. Okay. That person what will you will take the MAC ID and put it in the deny rule so that when it try to connect to the DHCP, it will not allow him to connect. Allow means you will only vendors will be coming to office every week or 15 days once, or the auditor will be coming to office. What you will do, you wanted to allow them. You take their MAC ID and enter. Just allow these users always. Okay, like that you can create the allow and deny rules also. Okay, and about the DHCP backup, if I ask you DHCP, you don't need to take the backup of DHCP. Okay, because DHCP have an feature. Okay, it automatically takes the backup of every 1 hour. Every 1 hour it will automatically take the backup and keeps inside the same server. But why do we need to take the backup? Whenever the DHCP server gets crashed, say for example the DHCP is running now, automatically it get crashed. I'm unable to power on the machine itself. If that is the case, even if the DHCP backup kept in the same server, I will not be able to use it. So to avoid such kind of disaster, what we will do, we will take the DHCP server backup and keep it in a some other server, so that in the backup server, so that whenever there is a crash happens, we can take the information from the backup and restore it. Okay, that is the DHCP backup. Okay, and one more statement is, see, reserved IP cannot be excluded. Means you already have a IP address and you have reserved. You cannot exclude that. But the excluded IP can be reserved. I told you, no? Say for example, 1.11 to 1.254, you have given it for the range. So what happens? You can reserve that IP address. In that whatever IP address excluded, you can reserve that. Okay. Reserved IP cannot be excluded. Means whatever IP address you already reserved, that you cannot exclude. I will show you that whenever I create the lab actually. Okay. That is the slide here, and the graphical representation you can see here, the discover, offer, request and acknowledgement. Okay, so what happened, this is very important guys. Okay, this is very important to understand the DHCP DORA process. Okay, so what happens now when, say for example, your computer is getting powered on now. Okay, so I told you it automatically gets the IP address, right? How it will understand? So whenever there is a DHCP server, say for example this is a DHCP server. So DHCP have a nature. So he will always self-advertise him. So he will always tell, hey, I am the DHCP server, I am the DHCP server, I am the DHCP server. Like that, he will always broadcast some packets. He will be self-advertised. Okay, what he will do? He will always send the broadcasting packets. Okay, every way. Broadcasting means one to many, correct? Huh? Broadcasting means it is one to many, correct, right? So this kind of DHCP broadcasting packets will be going out from the DHCP server. So this is your PC01. So this packet will also be reached here, and this client will understand this packet, correct? Huh? That understand, hey, there is a DHCP server available. Okay, what is the DHCP server IP address? 192.168.1.30. So the DHCP server have a nature of advertising on its own. Such packets we call it as broadcasting packets, and those broadcasting packets will go within the array network. You have 100 computers, I said, no, whatever network you have in the entire network, those will be flowing actually. So this DHCP client, it is set to get the IP address automatically. He will be looking for these packets. So when he is looking for these packets, he will get a broadcasting packet here, and in this broadcast packet there is an information called I am the DHCP server and this is my IP address. So this is called as discover. So this is called as discover. So whenever it identifies the DHCP broadcasting packet and understand the presence of the DHCP server and know the IP address of it or the details of it, we call it as discover. This is discover. So once it is discovered, okay, the DHCP client, what it will do, it will ask for an IP address. Client, can you give me an IP address? Then the DHCP server responsibility is to assign the IP address. So what he will do, he will just send the pool of IP address. He will tell, I have the range called 192.168.10.11 to 192.168.10.254. He will give the complete range of IP address. Okay, this giving the complete range of IP address, we call it as offer. Okay, this is called as offer. So on this DHCP client, okay, what he will do, he will just pick up one IP address, okay, and he will request for that IP address. What he will do, this person, the client, okay, thank you for the list. Let me take this IP address 192.168.10.11. I will take this IP address. Can you please give this IP address? That is called as requesting the IP address. This is offer. This is request. Then the DHCP server, what he will do? Thank you for the request. Can you give me your MAC address? He will just take the MAC address and he will just store it here. Okay, your MAC address is AABB61D11 and 7A, say for example. Okay, this is his MAC ID, and the name of the computer is PC01. When I have given the IP address, today is 22nd 10, correct? Huh? What is the timing? Say for example 8:13 a.m. So he will make a note of it and he will just acknowledge, please take this IP address and you use it. Like that he will give the acknowledgement. So this is what the complete DORA process I have asked. I have explaining. Okay. So discover means discovering the broadcast packets. Offer means when the client requests for an IP address, he will send the whole list of available IP address. Request means the client will pick up one IP address and he will ask request. Then the server will make a note of that PC name, what is the MAC ID, what time I'm giving the IP address, what is the lease duration, everything. Then he will acknowledge back, okay, I'm giving you this IP address, take this acknowledgement. So that is called as the DHCP DORA process. Clear? Yes. So then this, see by default, okay, DHCP works within the network. If you have two DHCP server in the same network, both will not work. By default, only one DHCP server should be there in your network. If you have two DHCP server, both the servers, if you are running the services, both will not work. That is the DHCP server, and that is how the DHCP works. But sometimes you want to leverage one DHCP server for more than one location. So before I go to that, let us understand why can't we use same DHCP server by default to another location. Say for example, Bangalore you have 100 users, Hyderabad 100 users are there. You don't want to use one more DHCP server there to avoid the cost in the Hyderabad location. And you are thinking to use the DHCP server what is there in the Bangalore location only to there. So by default it won't work because I told you now between two regions. I said to establish the connection between two different network you need routers, correct, huh? And this router is an intelligent device, so it will only sends the packets unicast. That means router will not do unnecessary work. He is a very disciplined, very obedient, and very intelligent device. He will only know if the packet has got what is the source, what is the designation, and what path I have to use. If you give this information, only he will pass the information from one region here to another region here. But I told you DHCP server, the broadcast packets are sending. Means the DHCP server is sending the broadcast packets. So broadcast packets means it doesn't have any destination. It will chumma roam like that. Okay, that is why DHCP server, the router, whenever the DHCP packets comes here, since it is a broadcasting package, he will just ignore it because he have some other work to do. That's why he will not entertain this kind of dummy packets or the broadcast packets. But you want to leverage the existing DHCP server to the Hyderabad server, so that time what we will do, we will just do a DHCP relay agent. If you look at here, this is your Bangalore location and this is your router, okay, R1. This is your R2. This is your Bangalore location. This is your Hyderabad location. Okay. So whenever the packets comes here, so in this router one, we have an option called relay agent, DHCP relay agent. So probably you might have heard in the running, we have a running called relay. Correct? Now means one person will run and he will give that stick to the another person. Once he get that stick, he'll just hold the stick and he will run and he'll get another person. That is called relay. Correct? Na? The same fashion works here. So what he will do, this DHCP relay agent, he will be running in the router one. So whenever the broadcast packets comes, he can read that information in the broadcast packets and he will understand, yes, it is sending some broadcasting information to send it to the other location. So that once he will understand that I need to send this to the another location, he will convert that broadcasting packets into unicasting and then he will push that to, once that get converted to unicasting, then the packet will travel here. Okay. Then here your colleague is having a computer and here he has set to DHCP IP address. So once the packet is reaches here, okay, again this server is there. No, here also the DHCP relay agent will be running. So he will convert that to broadcast. Okay, so then the packets will be start going here. Then he will understand this packet. Then he will know the DHCP server 192.168.1.30. Okay, and he will ask for the IP address. Then the same DORA process will happen. Okay, so by default, your takeaway of this slide is DHCP server by default works only one region or only one location, physical location, you could say. Then the DHCP server, if you have more than two DHCP server in the same location, both will not work. So what you have to do, you have to stop the services in one server and you have to tell you should not be authorized. So that is how you can manage to have the DHCP servers in the network. And by default, DHCP server will not work more than two locations. If you want to work more than two locations, you should enable the DHCP relay agent. Okay, and the DHCP relay agent will then help you to leverage the existing DHCP server from one region to another region. Okay, that is called as DHCP relay agent. Any questions? Okay.
Thank
So
you.
that's all about the DHCP. Okay, let me quickly go through. The DHCP means it is a dynamic host configuration protocol. Why do we need DHCP? To avoid the manual errors, and when you have more number of computers in the network, to make your job easy and tracking easy, you will go with the DHCP because DHCP assign the IP address and the parameters automatically. So there are two types of assignments in the IPs. So manual assignment, dynamic assignment. Manual means you assign the IP address. Dynamic means on behalf of you, DHCP assigns the IP address. Then we have APIPA, automatic private IP address. In the absence of the DHCP server, operating system will assign an IP address in the range 169.0.0.0. That is called as APIPA. So the responsibility of the DHCP server is to provide the IP address, subnet mask, default gateway, and the DNS address. And you also learned about scope. Scope means it is a parameter which consists of the start IP, end IP, DNS address, reservation, exclusion, etc. etc. Lease means certain amount of time, certain duration of time, your IP address will be given to that particular computer and takes it back when the DHCP lease completed. And you understood reservation. Reservation means assigning the IP address for longer time permanently. Exclusion means excluding the IP address from the distribution range. And DHCP works on the port number 6768. Okay. Super scope means the clubbing of two or more groups, scopes together. We call it as super scope. You learned about allow and deny rules, and you also learned about the DHCP DORA process, how the DORA handshaking happens. Correct, na? And you also learned about the DHCP relay agent, okay, and the characteristics of the DHCP packets and yeah, the router. Okay, that's all about the
Thank you.
DHCP theory. Let me stop the recording here.